Good evening, this is the Oscar expert here with Brother Bro, and we are at Toronto. Before we get into all these movies that we're going to see, some of which we're going to talk about, we got to talk about Venice and Telluride. We talked about some of these early on in some of the members-only videos. You know, they get that early content where we're rambling on about some of these premieres, but, you know, this is also a main channel topic. Let's get down to business on some of the big films here and what we think is contending for Oscars and what maybe dropped out. To start off, I do want to shout out myself. You know, my album dropped today. That's great for me.
We're really proud of you, buddy.
If you like music, particularly the weird or the experimental, my new album, I would say, is pretty woozy, a little psychedelic, maybe danceable if you want to dance in a weird way. So you can check that out on streaming platforms everywhere. But now to get into the real business.
Honestly, there might be less to talk about at Venice, so let's just start with Venice. Elephant in the room. Okay, the gargantuan in the room is The Brutalist. Maybe the only Venice premiere that is getting nominated for Best Picture. At this point, right? Right?
I guess that's possible.
Telluride had a few more that we'll talk about later. This is like a pretty good call. We put it in our predictions. Like, we put it in low. We were like, okay, maybe The Brutalist gets in. You know, Adrian Brody, we like slotted him in at number 5. We were too hesitant about Guy Pearce. We were like, oh, maybe he's a thing, maybe he's not. But this is the sleeper Oscar hit, perhaps of the year. We'd have to get a film. I don't think we're going to get a film that was more asleep than this.
We're getting 3 acting nominations here. It's Adrian Brody, it's Guy Pearce, it's Felicity Jones.
Yeah.
I guess the disclaimer here is that the film has not been bought for distribution, and so I guess there's technically a TBD on whether or not it even comes out this year, but it'd be silly for the studio to not strike while the iron's hot.
Yeah, that'd be crazy.
You know, films like Sing Sing or Sound of Metal that waited to the next year, I mean, those movies had very muted buzz when they came out at the Fall Fest. This thing's probably going to win the Golden Lion, and if it did, like,
what else?
You can't wait till next year.
What else would win the Golden Lion? You know, I would say this is pretty much like across the board unanimous praise. There are certain elements that even the people who didn't think the story delivered, or they thought like maybe it collapsed a little bit under its own weight, didn't match its ambitions. There are some reviews out there saying that, but even they are just swooning, just absolutely taken by the craftswork here, by the direction, the score, the cinematography. So this is like a 10+ nomination film, and we can just go count the nominations for fun. Best Picture, Best Director, oh my god, Best Director. Actor, Supporting Actor, Supporting Actress. Cinematography, screenplay, editing. I think there's for sure editing.
I've heard the editing's very good.
Score is absolutely locked. Production design.
Yes, I think so.
I think maybe costumes.
I haven't heard so, but
costumes has room. Makeup is sort of like an Oppenheimer possibility, where like maybe it could happen.
No, it couldn't. No, you're right. They do get older. And sound, maybe.
And sound.
As a maybe.
I would say right now I might have it in 11 or 12.
I think it's probably
12.
10 to 12 maybe. We have thought about if this film could win Best Picture, because obviously Sing Sing, with the underwhelming box office performance, and right now that thing's on the decline. Like it maxed out at under 200 theaters. That is I don't know what else to call it. That's like a failure. Yeah. The film has to rely solely on those end of the year screenings. It can do that, but it's harder to say. This film coming out of the gate looking like this gargantuan beast, like this thing could stomp on anything.
Yeah, I think Sing Sing's a film that won't even be nominated for director, most likely. The Brutalist is a film that very well might win director and win like a lot of Oscars.
Here's the thing.
And it may very well eclipse it in the very category Sing Sing needs to win, which is an acting prize. It needs actor or supporting actor. The Brutalist is contending to win each of those categories. That's where I say fuck. Sing Sing I think it's been knocked down.
Now, Anora also is competing with the film in original screenplay and director. This film could win the Oscars that Oppenheimer did.
Exactly, the Oscars.
Pretty much exactly. I think that this film is going to win at least one tech, and right now I think score and cinematography are looking very good.
Very good.
Very good. Very good. Perhaps winning those categories. I think Guy Pearce is looking excellent. Sam Jackson's done. Tucci's not getting winning praise. Macklin is okay, he's
it could happen if Sing Sing's happening.
Yeah,
but,
but really Guy Pearce is getting really, really good reviews. So I don't think people would have a problem giving him an Oscar for this.
No.
Adrian Brody is said to give maybe the performance of his career.
That's
he's winning conversation. It could be him. You put all this together, it can win director, it could win screenplay. man, this movie's got a big package that it can do.
Unfortunately, yes, I just can't see how Sing Sing just looks small in comparison.
Let me counter that by saying that, you know, The Brutalist, of course it's playing well with critics. It's a little arty. I mean, it doesn't seem like it'll be too inaccessible though, where
I've seen
like
some people say it's slow.
it's all, but it's like pretty squarely like an Oscar bait film that I think will also evoke nostalgia for like epics of the past.
It's got the stuff though, like it has a narrative as well, like being essentially about America.
Well, I'll tell you
about
this too.
immigrants.
But a lot of times we also think that the most acclaimed film from the festivals automatically becomes frontrunner. That doesn't always happen.
Well, remember Power of the Dog though, like
that's what I'm saying.
I think when we look at Letterboxd, we get a better rounded picture of what generally people think. And Power of the Dog was weirdly low on Letterboxd. And then we saw on IMDb that it was very low, so that was a vulnerable film. The Brutalist was Power of the Dog. It could get beaten by Sing Sing. And truly, Sing Sing is in the Coda position right now. I mean, it made like a similar box office like Coda did. And it's not a pandemic year, and The Brutalist is not Power of the Dog. I think it's more than
it's more than Power of the Dog.
So I'd like to hear an argument for why The Brutalist is not number one. And I know some people are just going to say Anora. We'll see.
Well, maybe Sing Sing has more heart. Joker premiered today. And maybe not surprisingly, it has mixed reviews, but they are mixed in a way that I think does not work in its favor, unlike the first film. So if you look on Letterboxd, you are all over the place. But what you don't really have...
You're basically Megalopolis.
But there's...
You look like Megalopolis.
I want to talk about the one slot that has like no ratings, and that is the 4.5 stars out of 5. Now, this indicates to me that all the 5-star reviews pretty much are like, you know, kind of fake.
Yeah,
Lady Gaga, people who
fans.
are rating the film without seeing it. It wouldn't make any sense for there to be a bunch of 5 stars and no 4.5 stars. So,
and a lot of the 5 stars you click on, like even if they seem like measured, like, oh well, you know, I was at Venice and compared to the first one, you know, maybe this is worse, but Gaga's so good. Just look at the user and see what their recent films are. If there's no other Venice films there, it's astroturfing, it's fake. There's a lot of these, and so Joker 2 does not have the same passion from those who love it as the first one. The first one, if you look at Metacritic, it's got like 8 100s. I'll acknowledge that the Metascore and the Rotten Tomatoes score are worse, but not that much worse than the original. But the difference is people gave the first one a higher accolades like at the top. So those people could be activated to vote for it for awards. Whereas like Joker 2 just does not have as many passionate people giving it 5 out of 5.
Some might say, well, the movie's going to make $1 billion and the audiences are going to go out for it. But here's the thing. I do agree that it'll do really well at the box office and it'll start a lot of chatter. But I don't think the chatter will all be in its favor. I think it will be kind of like what killed Furiosa, despite that Furiosa reviews weren't even that far behind Mad Max, was that, you know, everybody knows that it didn't quite live up. And that just kind of spoils the whole thing in a way.
But also, apparently, Joker 2 is not going to appeal to the fans of Joker 1. So you really don't know the kind of conversation it's going to capture and whether it's going to be in its favor or whether it's going to be more critical in general.
Even The Dark Knight Rises compared to The Dark Knight, I mean, the reviews weren't that far behind, but everybody just knew it didn't quite live up, and that got no nominations.
Yeah, I think this had to be better, and it's not better.
So what could this movie hang on to? Like, I really can't say if this movie's getting 0 or a couple or like maybe 4. Like, I don't know yet. It looks like people are really appreciating the cinematography, production design, score. Once again, those are being singled out here. And Lady Gaga seems firmly supporting from everybody that I've heard of. Like, that she's actually probably going to be in supporting and that she's very good. Like, I haven't heard anything bad about her performance, so maybe she can still break into supporting actress? I don't know. I don't think Joaquin Phoenix is going to fit in this year, and we all know the other reason why. Yeah, so maybe Lady Gaga, maybe a couple texts, like makeup too. So that's all I can really say.
It just doesn't seem like it's going to grab the hold of the Oscars like the last one did. And right now, I wouldn't predict any actors for it. I would just kind of predict that this thing's going to fall off and like, we'll see if it even lands in any craft categories. Like, it's just hard to say when I think the whole thing's going to sort of sink.
Now, The Room Next Door premiered at Venice, and this got underwhelming reviews, but not bad reviews. I think it's at a 70 on Metacritic. Some people are fans. There's no consensus that it's like one of Almodovar's best. I don't think anybody's disappointed with the performances from Julianne Moore or Tilda Swinton. But in terms of the awards conversation, you probably would want to see the movie overall doing a little better. It seems like Tilda Swinton is maybe the standout. Her character seems to be going through a little bit more emotionally, perhaps.
Yeah,
And
I've heard a lot more praise for Swinton, and more, I just have heard adjectives like, oh, you know, warm presence. Like, it's just not enough to get an Oscar nomination, especially for a film that's not in Best Picture. So I don't even know if Swinton comes along, because I don't think this film's going to get close to Best Picture, so that's why I'm thinking the actors are going to be hard to get in there.
I'm hearing the score is really good too, but again, I think it would probably be a little more acclaimed for me to slot it in there, although maybe he could surprise Alberto Iglesias as he has before. Maria has like an identical letterbox curve to The Room Next Door. That's just interesting to me. The movie did debut with underwhelming reviews, unfortunately. I think it's in the 60s on Metacritic, low 60s, and in the 70s on Rotten Tomatoes, so it's not looking that hot, but Angelina Jolie's praise is pretty unanimous, and I think that she's still going to land an Oscar nomination for this. Maybe the movie can score costumes, and I've also heard buzz for the cinematography, although that will probably be a little more difficult given the overall reception to get into that category.
Yeah, let's just say this was a safe bet from the beginning, and she is still getting in.
Yeah. Now, a lot of people think she's winning. I think that on your app, she's number one. And I've seen a lot of
people haven't galvanized around another contender, and people are dropping Adams because of the Night Bitch trailer, and people aren't convinced about Saoirse Ronan and The Outrun. Like, so people just don't really know what to do. If you look at Jackie and Spencer, like, those were more acclaimed, and they still did not win because those movies were just too strange for most people. It is different when you're playing Judy Garland and Judy, because that movie's like for it's like for the parents, like it's for anybody to have a good time or like watch on an airplane.
Right.
And
I think
that leave the theater saying, "Oh, she was really good in that movie. I really enjoyed that."
If Tammy Faye was a bizarre Venice film, I don't think that she would have won the Oscar. I'm starting to hedge my bets on Carlos Villa-Gascon, because Emilia Perez is still screening really strong, and I think it might be wiser to go for somebody from a Best Picture nominee. A lot of people are doing Mikey Madison for Anora, which I also can't disagree with that hard. It might be a little bit of a thing that like film Twitter would want to happen. She's very young.
I think we need to watch out for the fact that film Twitter is going to love Anora, and like it might be their Best Picture winner. I'm not sure like Mikey Madison's would be the kind of a performance that would win Best Actress in the industry awards. I just think that's less likely.
Queer also premiered, and before the festivals, I was not feeling too hot so on Queer. I was hearing word that it really is like a pretty odd movie. The reviews are pretty strong on it. Like I think it has a high 70s on Metacritic, and it's got its fans, but it seems odd and divisive, and I'm very excited to see it. It is not as palatable or as likable as Challengers or Call Me By Your Name were. So this is only contending for actor. And even then, due to The Apprentice coming out, due to a complete unknown, I don't even have that much confidence that Craig will get in.
The weird thing is, I expected to hear much more about Daniel Craig and Queer and how it's like the year's best performance. And I feel like I'm only hearing that the film is, you know, maybe a little puzzling. Like, I'm just not hearing that enough singling out of his performance to make me think he's going to survive the movie being polarizing and not an Oscar contender in any other sense. Like, I don't think the movie is going to get any nominations at this point. I don't think this has what it takes to make back its apparently $50 million budget at the box office.
Oh no.
Like, it's gonna be a flop. Like that's also hurting its narrative.
I think it'll get a Golden Globe and Critics' Choice for Best Actor. So I think he'll be in the conversation. He's not totally out.
Have you heard enough praise about him though? Have you heard?
I've heard he's really good. He's like really, really good. Now, Baby Girl has very strong reviews as well. That actually came out like pretty strong.
That's probably the second strongest Venice film, if we're being honest, and it's scored the second highest with the critics so far.
With the critics, yeah. I mean, Letterboxd looks a little more mixed. This isn't going to get any Oscar nominations. Spoiler alert for the Oscar nominations, but you know, it's one to look forward to. I'm excited for Helena Rain.
Kidman's sort of a contender, and Best Actress is a little strange right now, but I'm gonna say like that probably wouldn't happen. Like I think it's too out there of a movie and a performance to actually get an Oscar nomination for it. But I've heard a lot of praise for Kidman, and I'm really excited for Baby Girl. All the international films have been like not amazing.
Yeah, I'm still here.
There has not been one outstanding like sleeper international hit.
That's right. I'm Still Here has pretty good reviews and strong reception for lead actress Fernanda Torres, who maybe will win the Volpe Cup at this point or something.
Yeah, I think Volpe Cup is between her, Nicole Kidman, and obviously Angelina Jolie can definitely win that.
Oh, true, yeah.
I'm Still Here though, very good reviews, like solidly I think in there for Best International Feature.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of looking at Fernanda Torres as the Best Actress contender just because the field has cleared up. I don't think it's going to happen, but I do have her in my list right now.
Also, The End. This has extremely mixed reviews. There's no consensus on it. It's not going to get any Oscar nominations, I don't think. I'm kind of excited. I'm a little scared. The letterbox curve makes no sense. People are all over the place. Like, some people are fans, so I'm excited to see it for that. I'm excited to see it for the swings.
I was hoping for some Michael Shannon or Tilda Swinton praise, but that's been pretty muted. You know, maybe there's like a best song in here, but even that's hard to say. Like, I really have no idea.
We can move on to Telluride. We can start out with Conclave, which premiered to pretty much the same reactions as I think we thought it would get. It's actually been a little bit more divisive. Like, there have been some critics that I follow who are just not really that big fans of it. But overall, like, the letterbox curve is strong.
It's getting stronger.
It's peaking with 8s in a way that I thought that it would.
Yeah, and there's a healthy amount of ratings to the right side of 8, so like 9 and 10. You know, they're filling out a little bit.
Yeah,
people are
Oscar
just
bait.
declaring it as a surefire Oscar bait.
Yeah, that's what it seems
with
like.
Actors coming along, Ray Fiennes locked in for Best Actor nomination. Stanley Tucci, he's probably getting nominated. I've heard some people like leaving him out, but he's been getting enough praise. Like, I've been seeing enough people single him out that I don't understand why people would leave him out. Rossellini's a bit of a different story.
Rossellini is not totally out. I still have her in the 10, but most reviews come out of the movie saying, I didn't see enough of Rossellini to where I think she's getting the Oscar nomination.
She basically has one scene at the end. And I think everyone would say she's very good in it, but maybe it's just not enough.
I have heard a couple people who sound like they would be down for it. And, you know, there was like an article that came out recently about Rossellini, and like, I don't know if maybe she'll like campaign enough where she could do like a surprise thing, and maybe she gets just like a BAFTA Oscar nomination, something like that. I'm not really sure she's much of a top 5 contender anymore.
I mean, we don't have to look that far back to remember that Judd Hirsch got nominated for like a very short amount of screen time in The Fabelmans, but he was very much a standout. So
it's true.
This kind of thing is possible. But I think at this point, I might have to like dip her down out of the 5.
Conclave will be in Best Picture, I think. I don't know that it's in top 5, but
I think it's pretty up there.
I think it's like number 6.
People are shouting it out for like director too.
Yeah, I don't know if that'll happen. But that's the thing.
From the letterbox score.
Really solid. Really solid.
It looks solidly in
but
there.
But it's not one of the top 3 movies of the year, probably.
So that doesn't matter.
That's where I think it's just not going to make director.
It's not going to win. I know that.
I'm just saying it won't make.
I'm
saying it won't make the director lineup. Most likely, maybe it will.
It could very well get nominated for Critics' Choice for Critics' Choice for DGA.
I didn't say that it wouldn't.
And certainly BAFTA.
I didn't say it wouldn't. I'm just talking about the Oscars.
Sure, I think the Oscars, it's a little harder to get in for a director.
It'll definitely get screenplay, editing, score, sound. So score and sound, some people think that the score and sound are just too much, but I don't think that's going to stop it from being nominated. I mean, the Oscars sometimes like it when you go overboard. And they sure like the score for All Quiet. Cinematography is very possible too.
Yeah, I have it in for cinematography. Yeah. I have it in for costumes, which I know people like. I don't even think you agree with that.
I feel like we're gonna. I feel like we're gonna see the movie and go nah.
I think I'm gonna see the movie and go yeah.
I'm also hearing like excellent things about just the ensemble as a whole. So I definitely think this is
of course
ensemble
screenplay.
Yeah,
and SAG ensemble. That's right. That's just like very solid. Like that's gonna happen. Will it win anything? I think Conclave is the kind of movie that doesn't win anything.
No,
it gets a lot of nominations, doesn't win anything.
Now, Nickel Boys is like the most interesting and exciting film to premiere from Telluride. So Nickel Boys is experimental. It is shot entirely in POV, in 2 different POVs from the main 2 boys. Pretty much entirely.
And then they mix in archival footage.
Yeah, so there's archival footage. Like this is bold ass filmmaking.
It's like Terrence Malick Tree of Life level of experimentation,
or like maybe Zone of Interest to compare it to another like Oscar contender that's just very singular with its form. The reviews are a little divisive, but they're very strong. It absolutely has its fans, and most of the people that I trust are giving it very high regards, and I'm very excited for it. Now, in order to get Best Picture, all you need is people who really love the film. If you're divisive, you can still get in as long as the people who like it are really passionate about it. You can have your detractors, but if you've got your followers, your loyal fans, you can still get in.
I mean, think about think about the first Joker, for example. Critics, though, I think are really going to like the Nickel Boys the most. We're starting to see on Metacritic, we're going to continue seeing, is it's going to get a very good Metacritic score, but it's going to be 100s, and then it's going to be everybody else. And there seems to be very much a split, and it's whether or not you think the POV choice worked at all.
Or if
for many
just
people,
tiring.
the POV just gets tiring, or they feel like it takes them out of the movie. I think it's totally valid for people to like have this discussion about whether that works for the film, and I'm really interested in the film because of it. It just seems to work really well for some people and not as well for other people.
But I've heard people who insist that like the overall chatter on the film is like pretty mixed if you're like walking around Telluride, and so
That makes
I think
sense.
there's some reason to be like pretty skeptical actually that it can make it in. But then again, you know, I do look to films like The Tree of Life or Zone of Interest and say, like, you know, the Academy, as long as they think that the message of your film is coming through, like, they can embrace something a little more experimental.
And it's also because we're having a conversation about the filmmaking here. I think that is also good for its Oscar narrative. Like, there's definitely a prestige element to this film. It's doing something different with the cinematography, and there are some texts that will be singled out. I also think it matters a lot, like what other nominations this thing is going to get, and that's actually kind of hard to determine right now for Nickel Boys. I don't think Nickel Boys is going to get director everywhere, and I'm not even sure it's going to get a Best Picture nomination everywhere. But the Academy Awards might actually nominate it for a director where other places don't. You know, we remember they nominated Ben's Island for Beasts of the Southern Wild. They did Jonathan Glazer, Zone of Interest, and they did Terrence Malick for Tree of Life. I also hear that the screenplay is very good for Nickel Boys, and that will probably be nominated. So that's really good news, because if this was something that people were tentative about in screenplay, I would be a little bit more worried. And cinematography seems like it will be coming along. So that's actually a nomination I think is more likely than director. Hopefully, if the film fell out of Best Picture, it would still stay in there. But it's such a standout that I think they'd have to go for it.
And I also heard that the sound is a real standout,
Yeah.
because the way that they do the sound design to play into the POV.
But would you think I would get a nomination for that?
If it was very well embraced, I think that could be part of the package.
I also think editing is going to be talked about here, and I think it will get an editing nomination. I have it in my 5 right now.
Oh, you do? I don't know if it will, because I just want to mention a couple movies to you that had very interesting editing, but the editor's branch did not give a shit. One of them was Tree of Life. Yeah. Like,
Yeah,
the
it's
Tree of
kinda
Life
weird.
didn't get editing and sound. It didn't get editing or sound. So,
Yeah.
the cinematography and director's branch, I think, seem more likely on it. But,
Nickel Boys might get like 3-4 nominations.
that's the thing, is like, you can see how it would fall out.
I think it's going to get 4 and maybe 5.
I think what you need to see is the movie staying very solidly in the conversation and being something that people in the world of film are interested in talking about and discussing. Like, I think that'll be enough, and I think there's definitely a path for that. I mean, Amazon spent over $20 million in the budget for this movie, and this is like their main horse, so I don't see why they can't ensure that like Oscar voters are exposed to and discussing this movie. The mixed reactions can be concerning, but the fact that there's just so many fans, like, this will be one of critics' favorite movies of the year, perhaps. I'm currently predicting it in Best Picture, Director, Cinematography, and Screenplay. You know, maybe 1 or 2 else, but you know, we'll have to see. It's actually not a slam dunk.
We didn't even talk about the fact that Anjanou Ellis was at the top of our predictions, and now she's gone.
Well, she's not gone. I mean, I heard that she's very good, and some people say she really like adds a lot of heart and centers the movie well, but she's not in the movie a ton, so it doesn't seem like the kind of thing where you come out of the movie really convinced about it. But then again, you know, there have been plenty of movies. I mean, America Ferrera and Barbie was one where I was like, I did not come out of the movie convinced about her. So
Yeah, everyone says she's really good, but I don't know if she would be doing enough for a nomination.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, maybe she could hang in there. Like, maybe she could even surprise.
I think she's a solid maybe. The Nickel Boys letterbox curve is unlike anything I've ever seen, and probably unlike anything I ever will see, where it is a perfect ascending staircase. You will never fucking see that happen ever again. Like,
Well,
it's
not
actually
gonna
insane.
stay that way. It's not going to stay that way.
It won't stay that way, but the fact that it's like that.
Saturday Night came out of Telluride with very strong buzz as well. Most of the reactions were saying how the movie played to the crowd like gangbusters. People were eating it up and laughing. Now the critic reviews are a little more mixed on it. Is it below 70 on Metacritic right now?
It's 65 last I checked.
So I think if this thing continues to play the roof off of festivals, aka like does TIFF really well, you know, and does decently at the box office, there's a path for it, even if critics aren't like insane on it, just because it's a huge high.
I've seen a few awards pundits get out of the film and go like, oh, of course that's in for Best Picture. That's like a definite award season contender. It's excellent on the level of acting and craft. And I've heard other people come out of it and say like, this thing like doesn't do anything interesting, like we shouldn't care about this movie. So I think this is kind of like a Jojo Rabbit actually, where, you know, that film won the TIFF People's Choice Award. I remember reading reviews after that and thinking, yeah, some people really don't like this. Like people say this is bad, other people seem to love it, but ultimately it played the audience very well. It seems like the kind of movie, people were saying the right things about it, that I still have it in my Best Picture top 10, even though if you told me it was going to have a 65 on Metacritic, I would have said like, well then we should just take it out. That doesn't make any sense.
I do worry that the movie could be too much of a sugar high, and then by the time that, you know, it's coming out in October, like by the time that we get to voting, like sure, people had their fun with it, but is it memorable? Like if you talk about Jojo Rabbit, like that movie people felt had a very important message, and I think tugged at the heartstrings more. So if this movie is just fun, I wonder if it could be kind of like Glass Onion, which people were like, oh, that's like really big. And like, I don't know. I also think the nomination ceiling on this movie is not very high either. Screenplay, absolutely. The SAG Ensemble potential is really there. I think it's like going to get that. And so that could definitely keep it in. The only texts I can see are like editing and score. And that's like it.
Yeah.
And you know, those are even, I guess,
the nomination ceiling is 4. I actually am wavering a bit on it because
you should waver.
It's definitely a sign that there's only one nomination that seems secure, and it's screenplay. Even if it didn't get Best Picture, I think it's still a good screenplay. That isn't great, and I do agree that it's kind of a sugar high. Like people say there's not that much to take away from the film besides that it's fun. It doesn't really have a strong message. It doesn't really have a good narrative.
Obviously, if it placed in People's Choice in like the top 2, I'd be like, I'd be pretty convinced.
No, I think that's the thing. I'm pretty convinced it's going to place at TIFF, and it's going to be number 1 or 2.
We'll see about that.
Especially because of how people say it played the audience well. And TIFF is the place for that, and it's trying really hard. So I still have it in, but I'm like 50-50 about it right now.
The Piano Lesson also premiered. Now the big headline of this premiere was Deadweiler is the standout. Jackson is gone. The reviews are like this. They're like, oh, Daniel Deadweiler's amazing in this. John David Washington quite good too. They'll mention like the ensemble, and they'll be like, oh, Ray Fisher was very good. Oh, Samuel Jackson was pretty good. Like
Corey Hawkins was good.
He is being just looked over. Very few people even seem to think that he's the standout of the supporting male cast. So he's not getting nominated, folks.
Not getting nominated.
That's not even happening. Wow, what a change. People thought this was a surefire thing for like an entire year now. That has shaken up the supporting actor race. But Deadweiler is in. Deadweiler is obviously getting nominated for this.
She is probably the film's only nomination. I think she is solidly in there for supporting actress.
In the winning conversation, too.
Yeah.
In the winning conversation.
In the winning conversation. I think it's between her and Zoe Saldana, and I'm giving Zoe Saldana the edge because she's an Amelia Perez, and that's a Best Picture, possibly like 8+ nomination movie.
That's Netflix v. Netflix. What are they gonna do, you know?
You know, the other advantage for Saldana is that she's a lead in Amelia. I mean, they're actually both kind of leads.
That's right. They're both kind of leads.
I think there's maybe a chance that Deadweiler goes lead. I think she'll probably go supporting.
The reviews overall are a little more mixed than like Ma Rainey and Fences, I think. People seem to be very happy that the movie took some swings, but they also are a little more divided on how well the movie plays like tonally between these swings, it seems. And so I don't really see the case for Best Picture and Best Screenplay here. So I think it's a Daniel Deadweiler lone nomination. And that's fair. That's all I really needed. And maybe even Ray Fisher is like kind of in the conversation, but probably not. Maybe
it's probably like this Coleman Domingo and
Glenn Turman from Ma Rainey. I totally agree that it'll be like that. And those, I think, are all the major films that we've seen premiere here. Obviously, stay tuned for us to review the ones that are here at TIFF, and for everything else at TIFF that is here and that we will review. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing.
What has changed with your predictions?